Welcome back to another 0 Point Reviews, everybody. My name is Jeff. I am joined as always by Kevin. And on 0 Point Reviews, there's no point to our reviews. We're just here to have fun and have a good time reviewing cult classic and classic films of previous years. This time we're doing Joe Johnston's The Rocketeer. This is a Disney film. This is one of our very first Disney films we're actually reviewing on this show. Kevin, you have any fond memories of this bad boy, or what's up with this one with you?
I do. This was one of those movies when I was a little kid that just like their marketing caught me. Like it was power bait to a fish. They got me bad.
That's true. That's very true. It's set in the 30s. It got me with the Art Deco feeling, so I totally get that.
Very much so, yes, because it felt a lot like Batman after that period, because Batman had the 30s feel to it as well. But it was brighter outside. It was supposed to be more action packed. It had special effects. Yeah, special effects that we'd never seen before in daylight time. And I was just really on board for it. I was like wanting to see everything that Disney would put out. And they did put out some neat promo stuff for it.
Oh, hell yeah. I like the poster art, like some of the things you see in like our background we got going on, like our logo. Well, that way that Kevin worked wonderfully on. Like there's a good feel and vibe to it. And, you know, later on we would see this with like animated features like the Iron Giant. They would have kind of this old school feel to them. So it felt like you were watching something from very long ago that was more modernized without updating sensibilities. They kept the same sensibilities of the 30s. This is largely centered off of a comic book or graphic novel from the early 80s. But just to cycle back around, I never actually saw this in theaters. It took me a long time before I actually saw this movie. I want to say I saw this on a Disney Saturday night, when they were doing those on ABC for a time, where they were doing those feature films. I remember watching like all sorts of films on Saturday nights from Disney on ABC, and this happened to be one of those. I don't remember what year that was, but that's my memory of this film is when I first saw it. Then I enjoyed it. Watching it now, it felt a bit different, but we'll get into it.
We'll just clean those goggles real quick.
Yep. Roasted the glasses. I had to clean these a couple times.
I just remember seeing like on the Wonderful World of Disney, they would occasionally show basically behind the scenes of how they would do certain stunts and what it looked like in real life versus what it was going to look like once you saw the movie. Yeah. And that was in a scene where where it shows it flying into, they're testing the jetpack with the statue.
That poor mannequin.
Yeah, and
the leg should have been melted off by that point, to be honest with everybody.
Yeah, right. But if you've never been into a produce field before, that dirt's not hard, but it's most certainly not soft either.
That farmer's going to be pissed when he's got to come back through there.
No shit.
Is it going to be daylight savings time or not for him?
But they would show stuff like that, or there's a scene where Cliff's flying and he goes through some lady's backyard and she's hanging up all of her laundry, and it shows all the laundry just go straight up in the air. They showed how they did that, and it was really neat, and it caught my imagination at the time.
Yeah.
And then I saw the movie in the theater, and I think it might have been one of the first movies I fell asleep in.
Oh.
Yeah. And
for me, it's Out of Africa. My mom hauled me to that as a kid. It almost felt like this 3-hour movie, and I'm like, I don't think I was the target audience for that movie. And anybody of our age or older who's heard of that movie, you know exactly how boring that movie can be.
My first that I could recall, I think, was probably Romancing the Stone, because it was a
Yeah.
double feature with Roger Rabbit and Romancing the Stone, or Jewel of the Nile, whichever it was, the second one. So
Oh, I
this,
think that's Jewel of the Nile.
okay, then yeah, so this is probably the next Disney movie that did make me fall asleep, and
Mm.
it's not to the adventure or the story at all. It's not, but to me personally, for 100-minute film, you could take 10 to 15 minutes out of this movie, make it a little bit more concise, and it would be a bigger adventure.
Very much agree with that. It feels like it slows down just a little too much at times. And I think a little bit of editing could have really reined that in and made this a much faster paced movie and kept things moving along plot wise, action wise, everything wise. Otherwise, the movie's like super beautiful. The story's fantastic. The characters are great. There's a lot of vibrance and energy to the film, but it just feels at times that energy gets pulled down just a little too much. So, like to your point, 10 or 15 minutes being trimmed down would have helped. And it's easy to spot where you could have cut like certain things out without losing character development or anything like that. It just seemed like some scenes just played a little too long.
Yes. And for me personally, all of those scenes involved Timothy Dalton and Jennifer Connelly. All of them.
Don't you disrespect the name of Jennifer Connelly. God damn it. She's my Dark City phenom, and I love her.
Let me just say here and now, I love Jennifer Connelly. She was probably my first crush as a kid.
Damn right.
Jenny
and to answer that, Kevin, I only got one thing to say.
Jenny, who can I turn to?
75309.
Now I've got to go change my password.
The gas copyright hit. So
no, I love Jennifer Connelly, and I'll watch just about anything that she's in. She's
Damn
marvelous.
right.
She's beautiful. She's brilliant. I hated Jenny as a character. Totally hated her. She was not necessary to the story, and to me, she kind of slowed things down because Neville Sinclair, he's a Nazi spy who's supposed to be getting this weapon for the Fuhrer.
Yeah.
But his dick's telling him to do, wait. I could torture that guy, or I could take his girlfriend out to dinner.
Yep. And use her as bait, maybe get a little action in because, if I drug her, I kidnap her, she's totally going to want me.
Right. Bring her nice to my Palatial Malibu estate.
That's what he's thinking about.
It was a really nice house that also happened to be the original house on Haunted Hill.
Well, I also really like the secret doors and the secret rooms. That totally worked for me. I love that kind of thing, and I like seeing that in any sort of movie, and it especially worked well. I don't think played that up enough in this movie. You saw it for basically all of like a minute, and that's about it. You could have actually sprinkled more of that in and about, but there's no layer for the Rocketeer. There's nothing. It's, hey, I'm just going to stash this in a laundry room. Oh, hey, I'm going to stash my rocket pack in a trash can. Oh, hey, the helmet can go in there too. Yeah.
But the neat thing is that's Iron Man problems. Like, that's seriously how Tony had problems for like 25, 30 years before the movies came out.
That's true.
That part didn't bother me so much. The part that bothered
I'm
me,
just teasing.
Yeah, I dig it. Was there's the scene where she's finding the secret passages and she's finding the secret messages that she puts in her bra. All I could think of when she did that was like, here, Lefty, hold this. There was a scene that they cut out where Neville is actually using an Enigma machine to send.
So they actually have cutscenes in this movie? I didn't know that, actually.
Yes. I don't know if it was a cut scene or if it was just like cut from the script before it got filmed. It might have been that.
Gotcha.
But Neville was... No, it was a cut scene. I'll have to find it for you.
Okay.
He was supposed to be sending a message encoded with the Enigma machine, and it was an actual Enigma machine. They purchased one, but then they cut it from the film.
Huh.
But they cut that, which was really neat and historic, but left in the dancing scene. Wasn't necessary, and it really like made the movie come to a screeching halt for me, to where I wanted to pee break.
Yeah, for that particular scene, I'm like, I know you're trying to ham up this like love triangle sort of thing, or if he's really just using her as bait and he's just trying to make him jealous. But at that point, he didn't even know that, like, Secord was even there. Like, poor Cliff showing up and, just playing this idiot waiter, butler sort of deal. Oh, yeah, I've served you before, sir. And I'm like, oh my God. I know this is intentional, but it's a little too cheese for me at times. But the love triangle just wasn't necessary to this. I don't think you needed that, like, at all.
No, and like he takes Jenny's picture with him everywhere he goes because she's good
Okay,
luck.
that is okay. I kind of get that because back then, you're talking like the late 30s going into the 40s. That's really all you had to think of and remind you of who you were with. And that was a big wartime thing as well. A lot of like World War II veterans took pictures of their families, especially their spouses, with them to remind them of what they had to come back to. So there is
Yes.
something that carries forward in history through that time.
Yes, but
No
we're
cell
looking at
phones.
no cell phones. This was the Spank Bank kids.
Spank, Kevin.
Sorry. He every time, every place Cliff takes Jenny's picture, whatever vehicle he's in explodes. Like, stop taking Jenny with you. From the BG plane at the beginning to the fucking Zeppelin at the end, anything that she's with him on explodes. Jenny was a bad luck character for Cliff.
Or low-key sexual tension that's never realized.
It's never realized. Oh, but
I've been trying to tap that the whole movie, and it never showed it. Just saying. And I'm
Never
not even
showed it.
talking like dirty movie stuff here. I'm just talking like unrealized. Like, they had this kind of relationship where they were dating. You'd see them kind of kiss, but Disney was this so anti no showing love of any sort or affection that it's like you barely saw them hold hands. They had a little embrace, a little kiss here and there. It didn't actually feel like they were truly in love. And I wouldn't say it was a chemistry issue between the two, but it never came across on screen like they actually cared for each other. It just felt like they were two actors playing off of each other. So I'm not exactly sure what the disconnect was between the two, between like Billy and Jennifer, because they're both pretty good actors. I didn't quite understand what was going on with this movie with their chemistry. So it felt pretty forced.
Part of that problem, I think, is the fact that they didn't have a lot of screen time together. They
And when
really
they did,
didn't.
it was like, ugh.
It was the blimp scenes, and then a couple of the diner scenes. Yeah, sorry, Zeppelin.
Dun, 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 dun. No.
I almost kept a picture of that just to show like the video montage of all the different places that the Zeppelin was going, and I wanted to put Lord Helmet there again, going, "Did everybody get that?" Like, that's going to come up again
Forward
later.
to the best scene.
Oh, that was here.
Close the fuck up.
Oh, that scene. Sorry. My bad. I felt bad because, again, I totally love this woman and respect her. And I'm watching this movie that I loved as a kid. And it's like, they just totally showed her boobs. Like, where's her mom?
It's almost like a scene from The Shadow where you end up hearing like poor Tim Curry's character going, "That's such a clever neckline."
Yeah, like my skin kind of crawled for her. And I don't know if that's my old age at this point, the fact that I'm a dad, or that the guy playing W.C. Fields was exceptionally perfect and creepy. That scene was just off-putting to the point where I'm kind of like, I do need to take a picture of that.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, she's a fascinating woman. She's totally beautiful. And picture
Sorry.
notwithstanding, she's a tremendous actress. And I've been a big fan of hers for years. She's in basically my favorite movie of all time, Dark City. And she's in some other tremendous movies, as we've talked about before. But I felt like she was a little miscast in this movie. She could have played somebody a little bit stronger, not so aloof, goofy. I don't know. Maybe that's just me.
Yes, they gave they were so close to giving her like a really cool role.
I know. That's what
the-
it felt like.
Had she not needed Cliff at all throughout the movie, had she gotten those good pot shots in on Neville, her
Yeah.
character would have been fantastic. But they didn't do that. They made Ginny more cliche. And I get it. It's
Yeah.
1991. It's Disney. They need that.
Yeah, they're trying to keep it pretty family friendly with this one. And I ain't complaining about that. There's a charm to that for these kind of movies from this era. It's just it didn't feel quite right.
well, the problem is it's they wanted to market it as a family movie, which they did.
And they did, yeah.
But the
Because I
movie
do
has
remember
a kill
trailers
count.
and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, but the movie had a kill count. They didn't tell you that. So like the movie has some really advanced themes for kids
Yeah.
and really slow parts for kids. So this movie is probably really not for people. Oh golly, would you say under 13? Parental guidance under 13, would you say?
Yeah.
Let's just say it how it deserves. It ends with Timothy Dalton dying in a horrible ball of fire.
Goodbye, 007. It was nice knowing you.
where he's trying to get away. I'm like, oh, bless his heart. He's like a little phoenix going off into the oh goodness.
Yep. Well, they blew the shit out of that rocket pack, and the movie ended basically as a solitary story. So if they ever wanted to go somewhere else with it, they basically killed it right on the spot right there.
Yes, they did.
Unless the Howard Hughes in this movie was going to make another jetpack for him.
Which he said he wouldn't do because he didn't want to give the government a weapon.
Yes.
I didn't necessarily mind that they changed the character of who created the jetpack. I just didn't like the fact that they got this Mexican guy to play Howard Hughes.
I know, right? Total Mexican dude.
The Santiago fellow?
Yeah, this Santiago dude is totally miscast. Anybody who's heard our Harsh Realm episode from our podcast, SunsAndShadows.com, you know exactly what the hell we're talking about here. Terry O'Quinn got cast as Howard Hughes in this role, and he played a Mexican general in the TV show Harsh Realm.
He played both perfectly, though. That's the thing.
I would tell them to get lost, but he was in that show too. So what can I say?
But watching him and Alan Arkin were so cool. Like I loved watching them on scene together. That was a
lot of fun. Yes.
Yeah, to see them together on screen was really worth the price of admission. The special effects were worth the price of admission at the time. And
I'll agree with that. That was pretty spot.
like this here, yeah, it's blue screen, and we were just starting to transition into CGI, but they didn't use it here, and it looked cool.
It worked. It worked just fine. You look at it now with an eagle eye, and you might be like, "Oh man, that's not that great." Back then, this shit was dope, yo.
Yeah. And they got some of the most amazing stock footage of flying over Southern California and Riverside County, LA County, basically any place that had orange groves. Like they had just some amazing footage.
Can you take me higher?
Well, because those orange groves, for the most part, don't exist anymore. They didn't when I lived down there, even when you lived down there. So I think some of them were probably like put back in, or maybe even filmed in Florida.
I don't know. The OC, they probably faked it.
It
they usually
really
do.
feels like if you've been to Disneyland, or if you have a annual passport to Disneyland, they used to have in Disney's Grand California Adventure a ride called Soarin' Over California. And it was this. You were on a hand glider, but it was basically all these cutscenes from the Rocketeer flying through the clouds over the various different biospheres in California, and it ends back in Disneyland. And it was a lot of fun because you would smell the orange groves or the redwoods, the beaches. They did
What
a
if they
really
did all
neat
that
job.
while they were doing Flight of the Navigator?
That's a good possibility because that had some of the same footage, didn't it?
I want to say so. I don't know
Yeah.
for sure, but that's the first thing that pops in my mind when it comes to that.
I don't know. I haven't seen that in such a long time either.
Inquiring minds want to know. Put a comment down below.
Right. But golly, I liked the I was gonna I 0 point.
Boy, I derailed my own co-host.
Kinda, yeah.
Welcome to 0 Point Reviews. We go off on tangents.
And then lose them.
We lost it. That's
Part of
what
the
she
problem
said.
is I have the picture of the cleavage like right on my screen right here. So every time I'm trying to look ahead, I'm seeing behind. I'm trying not to look. I just moved that
You
there.
keep looking.
I'm
at
just
least
gonna
what
look
you
down here for the rest of the show.
Well, at least with this movie, you can honestly say it's very well written. There just seem overall there just seem to be some like pacing issues, editing issues, but overall it's well directed. Visuals look great. Story's pretty fun. Just wish it was a little shorter, but you know, I can't rag on the movie. I totally enjoyed watching it, and there's a lot I liked about it. I did like Timothy Dalton as the villain. He was really good. It's like he really sank his teeth into it. It didn't feel quite as on point as it could have been. And he really didn't have much of a physical role against the Rocketeer. They really didn't have a fight per se. So it felt
No.
like we're building up to a climax that never was going to happen.
Right. That climax really happened with the hitman, Lothar.
Yes, Lothar was dope. That looked like somebody ripped straight out of a fucking pulp novel or a comic.
He looked just like Rondo Hatton. And in my notes, I even wrote down, look, shit, is that Rondo Hatton? Surely the Brute Man is dead. And he is. This was golly, what was his name? Tiny Ron. And I was thinking to myself, where do we know that name from? I know we've
That
seen
does
him
sound
before.
familiar. I didn't look. Yeah.
It's Al from the
Oh,
Naked Gun.
shit.
I just didn't recognize him with the face.
Without the face, yeah.
But yeah,
Huh.
that's Tiny Ron, and that's the gentleman that plays Big Al in the Police Squad and all 3 Naked Gun movies.
Oh, I did not know that. And I know you didn't do any research, Jeff. Yeah, no, I was just watching the movie, enjoying it because I haven't seen it in like so long. And we have some bullet points. Kevin does research, and we also got a couple comments from people online. So
Yeah,
but I
and
like learning things. So this is a good form for us to do that.
and I play weird games of like 30 points of connection in my head when I'm on IMDb going, oh yeah, oh okay, this movie and then that. Oh, okay, it makes sense.
Oh, if we're gonna do 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, link this to 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon.
Right. I don't know that I can with any of this.
Yeah, I can't. I'm horrible at that game.
No. I got nothing. Nothing.
Nope.
Okay, so we've got the Nazis. We talked a bit about them. The Nazi is Earl Flynn, basically. Neville Sinclair was supposed to be Earl Flynn. And
Yeah.
Earl Flynn apparently was actually accused of being a Nazi spy. Never proven, but a lot of people blackballed him with suspicion. So that was kind of neat to find out. And Timothy Dalton played that perfectly. I hated him as James Bond, so I hated him naturally in this. He was a good villain for me.
He's always played a better villain than a hero. I never minded him as Bond, but he was never one of my Bonds. I'll still take Timothy Dalton over Daniel Craig every day of the week.
Sure. Yeah, I agree. Because again, that at least felt somewhat like a James Bond movie, although it was more like Lethal Weapon meets James Bond, or Richard Donner does James Bond.
I mean, that was when they tried to get dark and gritty before they finally were like, okay, we'll go back to the formula, but we'll update it with Pierce.
With Pierce. Felix is alive again, kids. We're sorry. In fact, we'll make him Joe Don Baker.
Damn right.
Damn right. One of the things that they did, speaking of Soaring Over California Adventure, is they cracked a joke when Cliff is trying to escape to go rescue Jenny from Howard Hughes, and he jumps onto this plane to glide away from everybody. And it's supposed to be the Spruce Goose.
Oh, yeah,
And
that's right.
he's sitting there going, oh, I'll be damned. It will fly. And apparently it did. It flew for 1 mile at 70 feet over the ground, and Hughes flew it himself, and it never flew again.
Yep.
But I couldn't watch it with a straight face because all I could see was the spruce moose from DuckTales.
Woo! It almost looks like Moose from Rocky and Bullwinkle, though, in that little image you got there.
Kinda, yes. I was like, oh shit, Cliff's finding the spruce moose. That's cool.
I mean, I like that. That was pretty fun.
Yes. But the feds were kind of villains in this, although they weren't.
Fucking idiots is what it felt like. The criminals
Yes.
felt a little more on point than the feds did. But what I liked was the overuse of Tommy guns in this fucking movie, and nobody was scoring any sort of hits until they started shooting at Nazis.
Yes, once, because you can kill Nazis all day long in Disney.
And nobody's going to complain.
That's right.
Thank you, Indiana Jones.
I mean, some of my favorite scenes were with the I don't want to say the Italians, but basically the mob guys in this movie.
Yeah.
They had a lot of the best moments. Like I said, this fucking guy here. Everybody's trying to chase down Cliff, and he's eating popcorn, watching him get away. Like, I'll be goddamned, enjoying the show.
Yeah, I know, right?
But my favorite line comes from Paul Sorvino in this movie, and that's when Cliff's trying to tell him, what's it like working for a Nazi? And he turns and he looks, he's like, what's he talking about? And Sinclair tells him, I pay you well. What does it matter?
Where the money comes from. I may be a criminal, but I'm a goddamn American.
Yeah, like this line stuck with me as a kid. Like, I may not make an honest buck, but I'm 100% American, and I ain't working for no 2-bit Nazi. And I'm like, yeah, 2-bit motherfucker.
Like, I may be shady, but bitch, I ain't working with your ass no more. You dead.
Yeah, and then the tables turn, and then all the mob guys, because of course Italian guys don't like fascism.
Yep, nope.
At all. So
Nope,
like
not at all.
they were proud that they served in World War I or World War II. Eddie Valentine here was supposed to have been a kid that lied about his age to enlist in World War I.
Okay.
Got into bootlegging and shit like that during Prohibition, and then yeah. So that was Eddie's backstory and why he automatically didn't like the Nazis. But then it was great because you think, okay, they're all going to win now because the Italians are behind them. No, here comes a shit ton of Nazis out of the fucking bushes and a Zeppelin on the Goodwill tour coming to pick everybody up.
Yep.
And like you said, it's got that G.I. Joe fight where they finally start to kill people, but then you've got the FBI agent right next to the mob boss, and they're looking at each other like, do we shoot each other or no?
Yeah,
Let's
they
shoot
have this
them.
look of like, you. All right, fine, whatever. Fuck it. Just kill those fuckers. We'll sort it out later. Uneasy truce for the moment.
10-minute head start. I'll dump a couple pages of that dossier in the toilet. It's all good.
Yeah, we'll go eat a couple of donuts while you guys take off. We'll try and catch you guys next time.
I mean, it
We'll
was
put you
just
on a Rico
fun.
case.
On He was great though, because like he was doing this job for Sinclair, even just thinking that he was a weird actor.
Yeah,
And he gets into his face like, you touch one of my guys again and I'll kill you.
right.
And the way that Sorvino said it was like, I knew that he was going to be like the biggest shit one day. And then of course 2 years later, I think Goodfellas comes out and he's Big Paulie forever.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, love Sorvino. He's fantastic. He basically steals this movie as far as I'm concerned.
Yes. Yeah. He is my favorite good guy out of this, more so than Cliff and Peavy, I think.
Yeah, and I like Cliff. He's very wholesome character, very Boy Scoutish, and there is a nice charm to that. It's very much more like Superman versus like anybody else, but without the superpowers. He's just a normal guy who likes to fly planes. He likes to do stunts, and he's just trying to get through life. And then, weird shenanigans happen with a stolen rocket pack, and it becomes the Rocketeer as he's trying to fight racketeers.
Racketeers.
Trying to score with a racket. Score with a rack.
With the rack. Oh, sorry. I didn't have it on cue.
Yeah, we didn't talk about this in prep, so.
Rack! Ah! You know what? I'm sorry. I'll stop showing boobs. Here's a butt. We got some mermaid farts for you, everybody.
Oh. Yeah, we lost a viewer.
That was the coolest part of that club. Like, they had mermaids swimming around.
They did. They actually showed it in a few different scenes, too. At first, I'm
Yeah.
like, I don't remember this shit. And then in like another scene, in the full like circle view, there's actually a girl with a tail just kind of swimming through. I'm like, the fuck? I really don't remember this.
No. And I don't know if that club is still standing in LA, but like they show a lot of neat buildings that used to be in LA, like the diner that was shaped like a dog. That was destroyed a long time ago, and it's been rebuilt. And I can't remember exactly where, but it's been in a certain historic area since '94. But they show neat little historic places that used to make LA really charming.
All right.
Like the Hollywoodland sign that, of course.
Oh, that I really liked, where they just blew up the land part and it just became Hollywood.
Like, so that's how that happened. And that's
That is
neat.
how that happened.
Because that whole explosion that blew up those 4 letters there was just from the rocket, which fits on your back, which you could climb up any one of those fucking letters, and it took out all 4 of them at once.
Kablooey.
Like it runs on alcohol and nitro
And a little piece of gum.
and a little piece of gum of Beeman's. Yes.
Hell yeah.
Which apparently that really was a good luck charm for pilots back then.
Yeah.
So I've never had Beeman's, unless that's like Wrigley's at this point. I don't know.
I don't know.
Pilot friends, let us know if you have Beeman's gum.
Yep. I am very curious. Or if that was ever a thing.
Supposedly. But speaking of the Beemans, and you were talking about the awesome stunts, they didn't have the CGI that they do now, so they actually had to do stuff like this, where a little BG plane is flying 2 feet up off the ground.
Yep.
And they could only do it so many times because the people that had the plane said that it could only land 3 times. that that was their insurance money, was it would be able to land 3 times safely. Apparently the Bee Gees were known as like flying coffins because they were super fast and hard to turn.
Yeah, I'm not that familiar with that, but I believe it.
So putting a good luck charm on it, sure. And even without,
Jennifer Connelly will always be my luck charm.
she is, but I can't. I'm gonna be a dork and date myself. It's Labyrinth. I was a dork for Labyrinth as a kid. I'm a dork for Labyrinth now. We talk about, and I'm sure we'll talk about it again more, Brian Henson on last week's episode of the podcast.
Oh yeah.
I'm a Henson nerd. I can't help it.
No, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And he's one of the main driving forces behind the 25th anniversary going on right now too. And speaking of like legacies, we did have a friend of ours on Twitter kind of point out that we should talk about Dan Stevens' legacy with this. And Kevin, I'd like to kind of pick your brain about this. I know he kind of created the comic book in like 82 or something like that, but can you speak to that a little bit? I know he did like storyboarding on like Raiders of the Lost Ark and a bunch of other things, but what would you say about that?
He was the creator of the graphic novel and created the entire pulp world. And it's okay, we complain about Jenny being a bad character for the movie, but Jenny is a different character in that graphic novel. Her name is actually Betty Page, and is named after Betty Page, who is a friend of the author. And when it came time to make the movie, she wouldn't license her name out to Disney for the movie, so they changed it to Jenny. It's like Jennifer, Jenny, Betty, Betty.
Yeah,
Clever. But it they stayed fairly close in spirit to a pilot that was down on his luck, wanted to do better, found this piece of equipment that was supposed to be a weapon, and he utilized it to do something better. And I haven't read it, but from what I have seen from it, it is fantastic looking and it's beautiful.
Okay.
And to boot on top of that, the people that wrote this, the screenplay, the bits for the movie was written by authors that we've talked about before from The Flash, and that's Danny Bilson and Paul DeMeo.
Yep.
As soon as I saw their names in the credits, I paused it and I'm like, oh shit! I started texting you.
Well, and some of what I was reading about with Dan Stevens briefly before we recorded here is that he also did storyboarding for the Flash show.
Oh,
the 1990s show. So there was a little bit of a relationship there.
Okay. Because I was going to say, yes, like looking at these two, this movie and those shows, or that show, very, very similar in vibe. And I enjoyed The Flash. So, of course, I enjoy this.
Oh, I stand corrected. He did costume illustrations for the Flash TV series that Stan Winston then built.
That's still cool, though. That's still
cool.
So
he was involved. So there was a relationship, yeah.
Yeah. As long as he's not claiming the trickster, because really all that was like, get me spandex in neon colors from the 90s and patterns from the 80s that didn't do well. So, that was the trickster's costume.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's a 0 point for this one. But no, I do want to read the graphic novel. I also want to upgrade to Blu-ray.
That's what I watched on. I don't have it over here. It's still on the coffee table over here, but that's how I watched this. I ain't doing Disney Plus.
I should have done Disney Plus. I pulled out the DVD. So when I went to get pictures, it's like, ooh, goodness. I remember this looking better. So in some respects, yeah, I do kind of want to see it in better or higher definition. I just don't want to watch it again and really anytime soon unless I'm just watching it beginning and end.
Right.
Almost like the same way I watched Return of the Jedi.
Just get it over with as quickly as possible.
Skip the Ewoks. There's nothing in the middle that's important.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, the Blu-ray, to be frank, looks pretty decent. There's like hardly anything of an extra on there. I'd almost like to hear like a commentary from like Joe Johnston. And like I said, he fantastic director. You know, this is almost like proof concept he could do Captain America the First Avenger, which he ended up doing much later on too. And I think he did very well on that. And, you know, I'm a fan. So I enjoy this.
I am too. And from what I understand, he just got whatchamahoo's its Little Shop of Horrors, didn't he?
Oh, I don't know about that. I can double check on that though.
I believe it was him that got it. And people are going, why are they remaking that? Is it going to be a musical again? And from what I'm gathering, no, it's not going to be a remake of Frank Oz's Little Shop of Horrors. It's going to be a remake of Roger Corman's Little Shop of Horrors, which sounds really interesting, especially if it's going to be a period piece again.
I don't see that on the wiki. It doesn't mean it's not happening though.
Oh, well, I saw it on the internet, so it must be true. Where
Yep.
I saw it, I couldn't tell you.
The internet is always true.
It is. It is.
90% one thing and 10% everything else.
Kinda. And whatever's left over in the plus or minus section, we all kind of make up for ourselves.
Yeah, kind of, pretty much.
Kind of pretty much. Oh man. But the characters out of this, one of the things that made me laugh is we talk about this being the greatest generation, but in the movie, even the assholes are nice. Like
Yeah.
the guys,
There's a politeness to them.
yeah, like they rib each other, but they're not really wanting to get each other in ultra hot water. He didn't, like, the one guy was teasing Cliff and actually let it out that the plane got busted. Jenny runs off all pissed off, and the guy feels really bad because he just cost Cliff the dinner night or the date night and maybe even the relationship.
Somebody
so-
ain't getting laid that night.
No, not unless he was really kissing up to Peavy. But
Blue ball on that boy.
when I loved Peavy as a character. I know I'm derailing myself again. They needed to have more of him because he was the wisdom of the movie, and Cliff has none. Cliff has no wisdom whatsoever. He's kind of like Indiana Jones, where he's luckier than he is smart sometimes. I mean,
he just figures things out as he goes along. He likes to think on his feet rather than plan anything out.
Yeah, like Indy, of course, has his book smarts. He is a doctor.
Yeah.
But training's on the job a lot of the times in his situation or his field of expertise.
Yeah.
But one of the things that really cracked me up was Peavy trying to do the math or the aeronautics of how to make this pack work and not kill you. And so he realizes that, to turn, it's not with your hands, it's with your head. And he just kind of leaves it at that for a while. And you see him doing this, like he's cutting something. and I
With a
started
hacksaw.
laughing. Yeah, I'm like, holy shit, this was 3D printing in the 1940s. Find something useful and refashion it to be what you want it to be.
Yep. And I don't even know what that originally was.
Could have been a trash can.
Could have used the radiator. I don't know.
Yeah. And they were very much into using anything that they could find to make something fly or make something fly better, change directions faster. Right. It was fun. And it was a simpler time. And I say that with respect. I say that with respect, and they
Yeah, oh,
treat
yeah.
the movie that way. Like, of course, there were problems back then. This movie doesn't neglect any of those problems that our society had then,
No.
but it also doesn't focus on them either. Like, LA's written nicer than than what it could have been.
Hey,
But
I watched Chinatown. I know how bad LA was back then.
yeah, or played what you call it?
LA Noir.
Yes, which I think
Great game.
might have even been mildly based on this in a way, sort of. But it has some feels like that. I liked that. Of course,
Yeah.
that was also like what 5-6 years later in the future, but
Right. Well, I also don't really feel like Dark and Gritty would have played out that great for the Rocketeer.
no.
Granted, during this time, you could have gone something with a little more noir-ish to give it a little more homage, but I think this played out just fine as they were intending. And going with a little bit lighter, and we're getting like 3 different films in the next few years that are like pulp in nature. You got the Rocketeer, you got the Phantom, you got the Shadow. It almost feels like a really fun triple feature if you're able to handle all 3 in basically a shot.
Yeah, and you're not going to see anything terrible. You're not going to see anything too gritty.
No.
Um,
The grittiest one is the Shadow, to be frank.
do you think so?
Between all 3 of them, I would definitely say the Shadow is a bit more on the darker side because Alec Baldwin plays Lamont Cranston, a former, basically, warlord.
Yeah.
And, with the Phantom, he basically fell into his father's line of work where he just fights crime and protects the jungle. And then in the Rocketeer, this poor guy just kind of stumbles across a rocket pack that everybody wants to get, and he ends up defeating some Nazis.
Nazis.
So when you're getting down to brass tacks on the more darker of the stories that we saw play across the movies between the 3, I think the Shadow's a little bit more on the darker side. But as of next week, we're doing Darkman. And there is where we get to the darkest of these kind of films. And that's not really a pulp film, but Darkman was inspired by the Shadow a lot. And that's why we're following up with that one next.
He wears a trench coat. It's noir.
Where's the cap? Bandages
true.
on his face because bandages fix everything, everybody, especially if you checked out any anime. Because bandages fix everything in anime.
Yes, they do, and they're multi-purposed. Kind of like, anyway. I was going to say rubber bands and thumbtacks, but whatever. Ah! Oh, but the ending though on the Zeppelin, it kind of had me laughing because like everything that could go wrong for the Nazis was going wrong.
Everything.
Like the pilot getting booted out of the fucking cockpit.
Fucking idiots. Oh my god. Like it played out like a freaking like 90s TV show at that point.
Kinda, yes. And you've got the SS guy sitting there ripping him a new asshole for wasting time, basically. And then he gets shot and then booted out of the fucking cockpit.
Later, bitch.
Yeah, and so you think what else can go wrong? And you find out Lothar is still alive and wanting to kill them on top of the exploding blimp.
Right.
Zeppelin.
Who ultimately gets blown up as well.
Equally beautiful.
Yeah.
So, and I will say this, the special effects for that were about on par with Deep Rising.
Deep Rising was better.
No, but
Yeah.
it had better latex effect. That's
Anyway.
Yeah, that's a whole other 0 point.
You say potato, I say tomato.
Tomato. And this gentleman here, God, his name escapes me again. Bigelow.
John Polito.
John Polito is one of the greatest slimeball actors ever. Like, I think my first dose of him, I think, was watching him in The Crow. And so, like, it just after seeing that sleazy pawn shop owner, I just kind of have that vibe of him. No, I guess this would have been the first, but he's kind of like a Vince McMahon promoter when everyone's like trying to run for their lives when the plane is going out of control and could like crash. He's telling everybody it's all part of the show. Nobody leave. It's okay. Don't
Everything's
panic.
fine, everybody.
Gas tankers like that explode all the time. It's all part of the show. And he's
all
like
part
sitting there
of the plan.
sweating his Bozak off. And it's like Vince McMahon used to say, if it happened on live TV, we meant to do that.
That's very true.
So to see Bigelow behaving that way is kind of like, oh, that's a long-standing American tradition. Kind of like a Great White concert.
Oh, yeah, pretty much. Yeah, John Polito's been in quite a few things. The most recent thing I remembered seeing him in before he passed away was Modern Family.
Really? I don't remember him in that. I'll have to watch that again.
Yeah, and then I know he did a Sci-Fi Channel show. I want to say, oh god, I'm gonna have to look that up. I want to say it was like Invisible Man or something.
That sounds cool.
No, it was The Chronicle.
Oh, okay.
He was like the head of the newspaper organization there. But I know he was in the Invisible Man show for like an episode or two.
That sounds familiar. I don't even know that I actually watched any of that. Like,
yeah,
beyond credits, but that was a whole different time of sci-fi.
That's true.
He though, I liked his fate in this. Lothar came to him and broke him in half.
Pretty much without showing the whole broken in half thing. All you saw was like the foot upside the head on the ground.
Yeah, and it reminded me of Freddy versus Jason. Where he snaps her or breaks her in half inside of the mattress.
Yeah.
Beautiful. And again, for a Disney movie or a kids movie, it was a little out. It's not gross. It is suggestive because again, you see his foot up this way, and you're kind of like, "Oh God, that's gotta hurt." Not if you're a contortionist.
Yeah, no. I mean, they leave enough to the imagination to make you fill in those blanks. So at least they did enough of that and kept the overall gore factor down.
Yeah. I mean, really, the gore comes in Lothar's face to me. Like, he looks like everybody does in Dick Tracy,
Yes.
which is just like a gross Rondo Hatton again.
Yeah.
But he is that horror element that I liked, and he made it fun.
Well, whenever he was on screen, Lothar, it almost felt like he was taking over each scene to show how much menace he really was to the overall story and to the characters that he was playing against.
Yeah, like he was like Oddjob times 10.
Exactly.
Really, really cool henchman. Doesn't get enough attention as far as like second bananas go.
I'd agree. Yeah.
God bless Tiny Ron. Miss you, sir.
We salute you, sir.
And that banana on the side of your face.
Yeah.
Don't want to go watch those again.
Yeah, I know, right?
Oh, but
did you at least have fun watching this, Kevin?
I did.
Yeah.
It took me 2 days to watch.
Yeah, me too.
About 2.5. And again, it's that 10 minutes in the middle where they have the dance, and he's trying to like give lines to woo Ginny, and Ginny's like such a film nerd that she's like, wait a second, you said that to so and so in this movie,
and then you said this and this and that movie, and he's just like, God damn it, you're ruining my fucking game.
Like, that was Jennifer Connelly's like great moment for her character, but otherwise, like the two of them, so slow.
Yeah, I do agree.
And it's It's not an excuse, but I play some really gross and violent games on my VR system, and they were calling me real loud that day. So that 10 minutes took about a day and a half to watch.
Yeah, I can believe that. I mean, I tried. There's certain parts that were so slow, I kept kind of like drifting off or dozing off. And I'm like, I have to watch this another time when I'm a little more focused. And unfortunately, it just took me that long. If I had watched this like in the middle of the day, it might have been one thing. But after a long day and it's like nearly 10 o'clock at night, there's only so much you could do for a movie like this of that nature. And it's not for a lack of enjoyment or anything. It's just it does slow down too many times. A little bit more editing would have brought the focus in and kept it a little more faster paced and gotten rid of some unnecessary things in the plot that weren't really needed like at all.
Right. And I honestly, I think taking away a lot of the story elements that they had, like the love triangle, could have been replaced with one more action sequence where he had the pack on. So you do have an action movie all throughout this film.
Excellent point.
Yeah, it's not. It's you've got action at the beginning where they discover it and he puts it on.
Yeah.
And then action at the end where he tries to save her and he doesn't really even have it on at that point. Like he does, but yeah. So there's action to be had that wasn't taken advantage of in this. That was passed over for a love triangle.
Yeah, I know they were trying to do something a little different, but ultimately this is what we got for a movie. We're not hating on this. We're being a little nitpicky, and that's fine. Everybody's got their opinions. Other people might love this more than the other two movies that we've reviewed recently, and that's cool too.
Yeah. I mean, let's see.
I'm proud to have this in my collection. I like this movie. Just not going to sit here and tell you I love this so much I'm going to watch it every day for the rest of my life.
Yeah. No, and it's something I'd want my kids to watch at least once so they could say that they've seen it. And looking back at it, this got a 6.6 on IMDb. I would rate it higher than that. I would rate this probably an 8. It's well shot. The special effects are pretty good. All the acting is great. It's that story plot that just kind of takes you in the middle,
drags it down a little bit. Yeah, I'd go about an 8 as well, and so I'll definitely be putting that review up on Criticless. A fun little app, and I'll also put it up on Letterboxd too. So when we do our scores, this is something kind of new that we're doing on our reviews here. I'm going to be adding brief little reviews to help promote our show and participate with the larger discussion on the Criticless app, which is a nice app for anybody who's looking for movie reviews. You want to hang out with other people that like to do little criticisms, little reviews. They also have long reviews. That's a great place to go too. And Letterboxd, if you know about Letterboxd, you know what that's all about too. So we'll be involved with that.
Do we get to say it stinks?
We can.
Waited all my life for this. I have.
You have done well, Kevin. And Kevin, you got any final thoughts before we say goodbye to everybody?
No, other than I'm glad we watched this. I'm glad my nostalgia goggles were right, that there was a part that really bored me in the middle.
Yeah.
Sorry that it still does, but I'm really excited for next weekend. Darkman is just love it.
Darkman's going to be a whole different ball game for us, and I really enjoyed this movie, and I want to thank everybody for tuning in to check out the 0 Point review covering the Rocketeer, and I hope everybody hits the like button down below if you like this video. If you do, also please feel free to hit the subscribe button and hit the little bell notification. You want to stay tuned for all of our video content coming up, and if you have any thoughts, comments, suggestions, opinions, you like us, you don't like us, put a comment down below. We still want that interaction. We are always looking to provide you the best content we possibly can. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Let's rock it off, and we'll see you all next time. Make sure you check us out on all of our social media platforms. We got Facebook, Twitter. We are at Suns and Shadows. We're also on Instagram at Suns and Shadows Cast. We are at SunsAndShadows.com. Thank you again, everybody, and we'll see you down the road.